Hey YouTube, Tweak here, bringing you all an update to my Shining Sarcophagus Yugioh deck profile for Post the Infinite Forbidden. Big thanks to my buddy Donnie for letting me borrow his Shining Sarcophagus deck. This is actually the deck that he's been maining at locals for a good while now, so he likes to keep it up to date with the newer support from the Infinite Forbidden set, especially getting the new Dark Magician. And we also have the Summon Skull counterpart that was released in the Terminal Revenge booster set, added to the new support, along with some changes made since the last update to the deck, some definite ratios for monsters and spells and traps that you want to run in the deck altogether, giving you access to some fusion options as well, thanks to the Dark Magician included in the deck also. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So to start off, for the new monster in the deck, Dark Magician, the Magician of Black Magic. This card's name becomes Dark Magician while on the field. You can only use each of the following effects of Dark Magician, the Magician of Black Magic, once per turn. If Shining Sarcophagus on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. If it's destroyed by a card effect or a level 5 or higher monsters on the field, you can special summon this card, and then you can set one spell or trap, the card that mentions the Dark Magician. So this can give you access to the Sorcerer of Black Magic spell for added fusion plays in the deck as well for this card. Now, it's not in the actual deck itself, but if you wanted to run it, you can take out one of the other spell options for a copy of the Quick Play spell to use in place of the spells that we are running for the fusion setup. We also run 2 copies still of Gandora G, the Dragon of Destruction. It gains 300 attack for each banished card. You can use each of the following effects of Gandora G once per turn. If you control Shining Sarcophagus, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can pay half your life points, destroy as many other cards in the field as possible. And if you do banish them, then special summon one level 7 or lower monster that mentions Shining Sarcophagus from your deck. So giving you access to the Dark Magician off this play as well, if you wish. But still, with this card also, it increases its level by the number of cards destroyed by this effect. Destruction power, the banish boost, all comes down to this, along with the Dark Magician being 2 of your big boss monsters that you want to run the deck. For our 3 ofs that we run 3 copies of Gadget Trio. If it's normal or special summon, you can add 1 Shining Sarcophagus or 1 spell trap that mentions it from your deck to your hand. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can set 1 Stronghold, the Hidden Fortress, from your deck. You can only use each effect of Gadget Trio once per turn, but having set up for that trap while also giving us access to Shining Sarcophagus for the normal summon of the deck, because the Shining Sarcophagus is one of the most important cards in the deck, obviously. So just your searcher for your normal summon as well. And then also the 2 copies of Silent Magician 0. If your opponent draws a card, increase this card's level by the number of drawn. And while this card's level is higher than its original level, it gains attack equal to the difference times 500. And when your opponent activates a spell card or effect while you control Shining Sarcophagus, quick effect, you can negate the activation and increase this card's level by 1. Having your spell negator in the form of Silent Magician 0, that's why we're also running 2 of this card for added options for your spell negate. And then for the 1-ofs, we have the 1 copy of Archfiend's Advent for the option while you control Shining Sarcophagus. You can normal summon this card without tributing. Other monsters you control gain 500 attack during your turn. If this card is normal or special summon, you can target 1 monster in your opponent controls and take control of it until the end phase, but that monster cannot attack unless you control Shining Sarcophagus. And when that effect was activated, the 1 copy of Swordsman 0, for being able to, when your monster that mentions it for this quick effect, you can negate the activation that targets Shining Sarcophagus for added protection. And then also the 1 copy of More Marshmallow. This card cannot be destroyed by battle while you control Shining Sarcophagus. And then also being able to use this card as more of a defensive measure and not so much as along the lines of special summoning more Marshmallows from the deck to the field for that play. And then for the hand trap lineup, 3 copies of Dimension Shifter, just because it does help with the added power boost to Gandora for the more cards that can be banished if your opponent decides to play through it. They just strengthen the play of this card. The 3 Ash Blossom, because you can still use it under the discard power for the Dimension Shifter as well, since it just has to be discarded and not have to be sent to the graveyard. And for the spells, 3 copies of Shining Sarcophagus, since it's the important card in the deck. First off, it cannot be destroyed by monster effects. You can only use each of the following effects of Shining Sarcophagus once per turn. During your main phase, you can add 1 card that mentions Shining Sarcophagus from your deck to your hand, except for Shining Sarcophagus. If your opponent controls or special summons a monster from the graveyard, except during the damage step, you can discard 1 spell and then target one of those monsters and send it to the graveyard, getting rid of resources, kind of going off of the Monster Reborn play that Yugi did against the Pharaoh Atem as well, using this card, but more set up to prevent those special summons. Also, 3 copies of Future Silence. You add 1 monster that mentions Shining Sarcophagus from your deck to your hand. Then if you activate this card during the battle phase while you controlled Shining Sarcophagus and a monster that mentioned it, each player draws until they have 6 cards in their hand. More draw power, but also just being able to add more monsters off of the Shining Sarcophagus search power that you can implement, getting your Gandora G, using Shining Sarcophagus to grab Dark Magician, just grabbing all your needed boss monsters right then and there. And then also 2 copies of Turn Silence. You target 1 face-up monster you control, increase its level by 3. Also, if you activate this card in response to your opponent's monster effect, while activation, while you control Shining Sarcophagus and a monster that mentions it, you can negate the opponent's effect. And during your damage calc of your monster that mentions Shining Sarcophagus battles, you can banish this card from your graveyard to end the battle phase, adding to the banish pile for Gandora, but also adding more of a defensive play against your opponent. And then also the 1 copy of Ties That Bind for the option if you control Shining Sarcophagus and a monster that mentions it. Special summon up to 2 level 4 monsters with different names that mention Shining Sarcophagus from your hand and or deck. And for the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you can add special summon from the extra deck. But still, the main play in this deck isn't really so much the extra deck reliance, but still the main deck monsters that, have the Shining Sarcophagus monster effect in its name. And then also 3 copies of Super Polymerization. As I said, this is the build that he plays at locals. So with this card, it's added resource to disrupt your opponent's plays, depending on what you go up against. If you wanted to run the Dark Magician Fusion spell, instead you can take out 1 copy here, along with the more Marshmallons for the added spots to add to these spots also. So the 1 spell for the Dark Magician, and then the 2 additional Marshmallons if you don't have the Super Polys. And then also the 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity for the added search power, while also banishing to make your Gandora G stronger as well for the more cards you banish. And then also the 1 copy of Call by the Grave, and also 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talents to finish off the spell lineup. And for the traps, we run the 1 copy of the new Dark Magic Mirror Force. When your opponent monster declares an attack, or opponent's monster effect is activated that would destroy a monster on the field, while a monster that mentions Shining Sarcophagus is on the field, destroy as many attack position monsters your opponent controls as possible. Then if you control Dark Magician, inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each monster destroyed. So this plays off of the Dark Magician that we run in the deck, having destruction power and burn damage to your opponent. And then the 1 Stronghold, the Hidden Fortress, for the added search off of the gadgets, and then another defensive setup to use on the field. With the last of the traps being 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, just the hand trap of choice, along with Dimension Shifter and the Ash Blossom that we run in the deck also. For the extra deck, for the Link monster lineup, the 1 copy of Selene, Queen of Master Magicians, the 1 Lena the Light Charmer, the 1 copy of Nightmare Cerberus, and the 1 Barricade Board Blocker, along with the 1 Underworld Goddess, the 1 Apollosa, and the 1 Access Code Talker for all of our Link monsters. And for the fusions, we also have the setup. Missed the 1 as well, sorry with that. The 1 IP Masquerena for the Link monsters. And then for the fusions, we do have the option to go into Dragoon with this deck as well, with the Gandora Dragon and then Dark Magician on the field for our plays. The 1 copy of Yubel, because he does like to use it to go up against the meta play at locals. But if you have the Dark Charmer Gloomy, you can always replace that for this spot. The 1 Mud Dragon, the 1 Garura, and the 1 Dragostopelia, and the 1 Starving Venom for the rest of the lineup for the extra deck for the play. And then the 1 additional card that he said he would put in for the 15th spot in the deck would either be a 2nd copy of Red Eyes Dark Dragoon for the multiple fusion options, or just the 1 additional spot being potentially Cross Sheep as another Link to monster spot. But then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck for the added monster buildup, the big play still is the use of the Shining Sarcophagus, being able to use this card for your play during your main phase, add 1 card that mentions Shining Sarcophagus from your deck to your hand, except for Shining Sarcophagus. So you can use this to then add your go-to Dark Magician, being able to special summon it if it's on the field. And then with this card, you could go for your search for the Dark Magician spell, having your fusion play ready to go for Dragoon if you happen to have your Gandora G as another special summon. So having a bigger monster play along with access to a Red Eyes Dark Dragoon play is what makes the deck pretty strong. With the added support, we have more defensive power as well in the form of Dark Magic Mirror Force, which does have Shining Sarcophagus in its name also to rely on to use against your opponent. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Once again, big thanks to my buddy Donnie for letting me borrow his Shining Sarcophagus deck for the video. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.